From the Vox Populi studios in Miami Lakes, we bring you the Miami Lakes Business Podcast, brought to you by the Miami Lakes Chamber of Commerce. And today we have a very interesting podcast. It's the first time, actually, we're making history here. Making history because it is the first time that we have two individuals that are running for the same position, which is the mayoral position of Miami Lakes in November of this year. And I'm talking about Councilman Judge Dieguez and Councilman and Vice Mayor Tony Fernandez as well. So welcome, guys, to to our podcast.
Thank you, Fred.
It's good that you accepted the invitation, but I think the people are going to be mighty pleased to hear what you have to say. So let's go right into our subject matter. And you can jump in. Either one of you can answer the question, or both of you, if you feel like you want to do a follow-up or whatever to each other, you can do that. Just feel, welcome to do that. We're going to do this like a very, very easy kind of, conversation. So feel free to do that. People, many times, they criticize public servants. And it's a difficult career. Because you're out there in the public eye, and very easy to be picked on, and very easy to be criticized, and sometimes the rewards are very few. So what makes you choose public service?
Well, I guess I'll take that. And again, thanks for having us. I think Tony and I would agree, though, that even though some people treat it as a career, it's not that for us. At least for me, it was born out of an interest in government and politics broadly that started after 9/11 happened, which was a very important event in my life. Eventually, I went to intern for the town. One of my first tasks was actually passing out variances to homeowners for a council member at the time, and a couple other responsibilities. And then that grew into getting involved with different campaigns, and from there also joining different boards. So I was part of the Neighborhood Improvement Committee, which I eventually became chair of, and I was also part of Elderly Affairs. And then eventually I ran for office myself in 2018. So it was part of this just progression that stemmed from those events. It really stuck with me a lot. And then I also just, because keeping family right, politics is very important. It's much discussed at the dinner table. So I just took a natural liking to it as an important way that we can affect positive change in the community. And and then I also just got into student government. So it started from there and just grew.
Very good. How about you, Tony?
So I think, especially here in the town of Miami Lakes, public service is really a calling, right? It's not really a career thing. It's not something that you do to further your career. It's really a calling. It takes great, personal and family sacrifice to do it. For me, as soon as my wife and I moved here, I realized we were investing in this community. We bought a house here, and we should invest some of our time and some of our resources into making that community a better place to live. And so I started participating with different community organizations. I joined, actually served with Councilman Dieguez on the Neighborhood Improvement Committee for a few years, and my love for public service, really that calling kind of became president in 2020. I ran for council, and the last 3.5 years have been fantastic, and I look forward to more.
That's good. One thing that I know that exists here in the town of Miami Lakes is that the mayoral position is not a strong mayor, which means that you don't make any money. Like in other towns, the mayor is the one that makes the money. Here, the one that makes the money is the town manager. And there's some stipends and some things that you may receive, but it really doesn't amount to anything. So is it really worth it?
I think it is. At least for me, this is my hometown. I've been here since my family moved in 1989. And so for me, again, as I went through how I got into elected office eventually, it just was born out of love for the town. I remember going to the arts and crafts show when I was a kid on Main Street, among other events that I would go to with the family. And so that is its own reward, being able to finally get back to this place that I really love. But yeah, it is public sacrifice. For example, me as an attorney in my day job, right? If I'm not billing, I'm not making money, right? And the $15,000 a year that the total compensation comes out to as a council member is, you really have to want to do this in order to to make it worth it, right? Because it's definitely not for the money. And I know sometimes there are those that sometimes they think that we're getting paid more than we actually are, and many of them, when you tell them the truth, are surprised. But it really is a labor of love, and I think that's the motivation that you have to hold on to when times get tough or challenging.
Absolutely, Fred, and I think that it goes not only for us, for the both of us, but for the entire council, right? I think all of us sacrifice, our careers to an extent, time with loved ones, and we lose out on some of those earning opportunities because we're serving the town. But it's absolutely worth it when you speak to a resident and they have an issue that affects them on a daily basis, and you as a policymaker are able to come into this building and effectuate that change and improve that resident's life. It makes when you drive around the town and you see some of the impact of those things that you were able to accomplish, it makes it definitely very rewarding.
All right. George mentioned that he was an attorney. And how do you make your living, Tony?
So I run an IT services firm that specializes in the K-12 education sector. So we do IT services, any kind of IT service you could possibly imagine in a school. We offer. We've been open since 2010. So it's going to be 14 years now in October. We service clients all over the Southeast. We have a presence in 11 states as of now, and it's something that definitely keeps me busy, keeps me on my toes. But one of the things that I really love about it is I get to solve problems every day, right? And I love solving puzzles, building Legos, things that involve problem solving, and it gives me something, a new problem to tackle every day.
Well, that's great. That's great. Let's talk a little bit about your history as council members. Both of you, I think, have been about the same time. You're in your second term right now.
But very close, almost 6 years.
Almost 6 years, and Tony, you're almost three.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about achievements that you have accomplished, things that you wanted to do and you were able to, carry them out and as part of what your constituents have been, asking you for help or whatever.
Absolutely.
Let's
so
talk a little, without getting into,
no, of course,
the nitty gritty, but let's talk about, things that you have achieved.
So there's two that come to mind that I'm particularly proud of. One, I was able to spearhead the creation of a senior citizen tax relief program, right? That whose effort is really to put those tax dollars that those low-income seniors pay the town back in their pockets, right? I think we have a responsibility to previous generations to kind of, pay it forward and make sure that those people can continue living prosperously here in Miami Lakes. The second thing that I'm especially proud of is one of the big things that I championed as I was running, and what I kept hearing from the residents is stormwater drainage, right? It rains. It rains on a Wednesday. Everybody expects flooding after
the water
a storm,
still stays.
But it rains on a Wednesday at 2:00 for half an hour, and the water's ankle deep in front of my house. And so, one of my first priorities when I joined the council was really pushing forward that stormwater agenda. The first of which was a stormwater utility bonds program that we did. We funded $18 million worth of stormwater improvements with that, and then there were some other federal monies that came after that were able to augment that program. But driving around the town and seeing some of those very blocks that I walked before I was on the council that used to flood terribly, and seeing them in a much better place is something that brings me great joy.
That's good. That's good. How about you, Josh?
So looking at the first term in particular, I was in charge of the town's census efforts in 2020, and obviously we had the lockdowns, which proved the challenge in terms of making sure that our count was up. And what people forget is that the census is not just trying to count how many people you have in the town just to know, right? It's not just supposed to be some fun trivia fact. That actually governs a lot of the share of state revenue sharing that we get every year. A lot of federal grant programs and other types of programs are based on population. So you have a very strong interest in making sure that you have a strong count. And notwithstanding that we had the COVID lockdowns going on and everything that was going on at that point in time leading into the count in April of that year of 2020, we still were able to actually match our self-reporting numbers compared to 2010. So I thought that was a pretty big feat because, again, that's something that affects our bottom line as a town government.
Absolutely.
Additionally, I was, funny enough, actually the year before that, in 2019, my first year on the council, we had a deficit that we had to close in the budget. At one point, it was over $1 million. And that was the result of one of our revenue sources going through a temporary pause while the mechanism through which we collected it changed, right? So we had to make some tough choices there. But what I did is I brought the whole council together in a room, literally right behind you, Fred, in the mayor's conference room, and we were able to hash it out and cut substantial amounts from the budget. And all things considered, also being able to largely not affect services. That money has slowly been put back, and that's good. Additionally, though, one other thing I want to highlight from my second term that I'm very proud of is working with my colleagues to get $3 million through the federal appropriations process to help complete the Northwest 59th Avenue project. Very important to you because it's Fred Seminole Way, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, that project was on life support by the time that the money was appropriated. And it had been a very long time since we had really reached out to Congressman Dieguez-Ballart's office to try and get any money through that federal appropriations process. So I was glad to kickstart that and keep 59th Avenue as a viable project. Again, that's important connectivity, not only for the area where you're at, for the businesses there to get their customers to you sooner and your employees to you sooner, but also for emergency services to access Miami Lakes Tech in the event of an emergency much faster. So those are a couple items I've been very proud to to push for in my first and second term. Well, actually, one more thing, because it goes back to things that are tangible, right? So at the start of my time in office, 67th, the exit at 67th Avenue and the Palmetto was barren. It was no trees, no bushes, no nothing. I was able to work with the town manager and with their FDOT partners to eventually get into their plan to go ahead and add the palm trees that are there today. It's still a far cry from what I wanted to see. So I'd like to come back and take a look at that, but it's a step in the right direction from what was there before. And I think, an example of how we need to work with our other government partners to get things done for the residents.
Let me bring up another subject that I know is of interest of all our listeners and viewers. Are there any plans in the works to improve the Optimist Park? We know that our company sponsors the baseball season for the Optimists for the last 13 years, and so we pretty much involved in the park. But the park really leaves a lot to be desired because the conditions are pitiful. Are there any plans, any or not, and I know that we can't.
Can we answer that without sunshine?
We can't get into the details.
Yeah.
But maybe if there is something that people will say, oh wow, I think maybe.
Well, I think that both of us agree that something needs to happen at the park, even though I was opposed to the park bond itself, right, for a variety of reasons. But that doesn't mean that we've, at least in my case, since I was opposed to the bond, doesn't mean that I've abandoned the park by any stretch of the imagination. Rather, it's about having to go back to the drawing board and figure out a solution that works. As my colleague pointed out, we have to be careful because of the Florida Sunshine Law that requires that we only conduct public business in public meetings that have been properly noticed. But I think it's safe to say we've had a couple workshops since the election in 22. And there's some ideas that have been kicking around.
So it's not a dormant thing. It's something that is
it's
still
an ongoing
alive.
Process. Yeah, it's an ongoing process. Okay. And I think we're just still trying to figure out, the best way that we want to approach it. Him from his perspective, and mine from mine, and see what we can do.
Fred, it's like it's dormant like a volcano with lava bubbling underneath, right? So,
I know. I just hate to hear when I hear, well, we can't do this here. We have to do it in Pembroke Pines because the park is not conducive, to carry out this kind of event or whatever.
100%, and that park. That whole issue is extremely complex. There's different government agencies that we have to coordinate with. There's obviously the where to get the funding question to tackle. There's a lot of moving parts to it. I think it's definitely an issue that we haven't forgotten about. We haven't put on the back burner. And definitely something that I expect we're going to be working a lot more on soon.
Another issue that I think is important to maybe talk about if we can is the new sheriff issue. How do you see that affecting our town?
So as a contract city, right? We essentially outsource our police services to Miami-Dade County. I have no reason to suspect that whomever the sheriff becomes will be cooperative and receptive to work with us as a contract city. I haven't heard of a single candidate say anything to the contrary, and I think it behooves them to want to work with us, right? If you think about it from a business mindset, like we might, there aren't a whole lot of other clients out there to be had, right? So we're one of the three that they have. It would behoove them to keep us. And I think we're well served by the services that we get from the county. Obviously, there's a lot of change and a lot of movement that's going to happen there, but I think we'll be. I'm very confident we'll be able to continue to provide the residents the same service.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think whoever the sheriff is, is willing to have an open relationship for the betterment of the people we serve, right? Because ultimately we're all serving the same people. I think in terms of whether we should, in terms that obviously we're going to have a question, right, at some point where we have to decide: do we want to continue though contracting, or do we want to have our own department?
Our own department,
right? Yes. And I think most people are happy with the services we receive from Miami-Dade Police Department, and so long as whoever the next sheriff is continues to show that they are going to maintain the same level of professionalism and quality of service, I think most residents will be inclined to stick with that, right? I'm still curious to see how this shapes out. I think there's something like 17 candidates.
I know.
It's a very crowded field.
It's a real mess.
Yeah. So trying to, even on a personal level, decide who I'm going to vote for, it can be a little bit of a challenge because there's so many qualified candidates, right? And then others that I'm not as familiar with, so I don't know whether to, what to say about their qualifications. So I'm still thinking about it, but as the vice mayor mentioned, I think we're in a good position to work with whoever the new sheriff is.
I just want to throw this other question because I think it's to me to know. I've been in this town for 44 years, a resident of the town, being part of our business ownership here for a number of years as well. Not as many, but 14 years actually. And I've always heard that Miami Lakes populations is 33,000. That's the number that I have heard since the beginning of time. But it can't be 33,000 anymore with all the new people that I see moving in and people living in the apartments and all that.
So you may recall earlier when I was talking about when I was leading the census efforts here that we had a very similar reporting number compared to 2010. So the official population count, right, is currently somewhere around 31,000 or so. Before it was actually less than that. The 2010 number was a lot less. So we did show a population increase. I agree with you though that we are undercounted. Our response rate, at least the self-response rate, was about 70%. In 2010, it was 71%. Wow. So that naturally, accounts for about 30% of the population, at least, that has not, of households, to be more specific, that have not stepped up. So I actually think the number might be closer to 35, maybe a little higher.
I would say.
But it's just unfortunate. People, for different reasons, privacy concerns, whatever the case might be, just didn't want to fill out the census. But unfortunately, that does mean that we're getting less money that we're entitled to from our federal partners, our state partners, that can go toward roads, towards sidewalks, police services.
Exactly.
So that was a challenge as it is, because normally you have the city that also has their own standalone marketing effort and efforts to increase the count and educating the population. Obviously, because of lockdown, you couldn't go knocking on doors, right? You were confined to whoever wanted to watch your video PSA or who got your notice in the mail. And then also the federal government pays surveyors to go door to door to supplement the local effort. But again, a lot of that had to be scrapped because of the lockdown. So I agree with you. We've been hearing that number. I heard 30 before, so and then it changed to 33. I would say the number is probably closer to 35 at least, between all the new buildings, some of which were already open at the time that we had the census, but for whatever reason maybe didn't count fully the population. But yeah, we're definitely growing and a lot more packed than we were before.
So one thing that I would add, and especially for the business community that's actively weighing, whether to invest in our community. So it's 31,000 residents that sleep here at night, but being part of the greater Miami Metro. Obviously, I mean, we're surrounded by other municipalities on all four sides. The amount of people that come eat here, play here, shop here is much greater than that 33,000. So if there's anybody out here that's willing to or looking or thinking about investing in our community, I want to make it very clear that the market is a whole lot bigger than just
right. It is important that we talk about those things because of that. Business, they want to come in here, but they want to know that they'll be able to succeed. They'll
Absolutely.
be able to make ends meet there. We talk about elections and we talk and I think that we just had a special election that had to go into a runoff this past week. But one thing that I saw was the poor show of voters. I think, if I'm not mistaken, less than 10% of the voting registered voters voted.
About 10.36% in the runoff, and then prior to that, it was 10.50 something.
Right. How can we change that? How can we, how can we promote more interest on the public from the public?
My view is that it starts young, right? And it starts with the quality of the civics education you provide, right? If you're, not everybody's like me that enjoys reading biographies, so one interesting concept that, over years I've heard of, but I didn't have a chance to participate until this year, is Project Citizen, which helps to make public quality of life issues front and center for kids and allows them to participate in crafting a solution, right? So one of the projects that I was judging involved the issue at the animal shelter and how it's overcrowded and what are potential solutions to that issue. Another one dealt with issues involving teacher safety and how to protect teacher privacy as a result, as some parents are very aggressive. So I think it begins with civics education and how you can engage people to think of voting as both a civic duty and something that solves real issues that affect you or that are important to you, right? Whether it's the dogs, whether it's the issue of taxes. I think it starts there, right? Because again, you saw that, as I mentioned earlier, the turnout was pretty consistent between the first round and the second round. And what I think you see there is you have a lot of people that they rather go out and vote for president. Maybe it's just something more visible to them because they see it on the news more often, whatever the case might be. And so they're just not as in tune with what's happening locally, which is a shame because local government is the government that affects you the most day to day, right? When you're talking about, crime, when you're talking about your property taxes, you're talking about education, the list goes on. The quality of your parks.
Especially if it isn't a town that you live in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think, I wish I could tell you that there was something in particular to raise turnout. The obvious one would be to go to a November election. But at the same time, the issue that was present in this situation is that you need to fill that vacancy as soon as possible so you're not having a deadlock council, right? The idea is to fill the council with all 7 members and maintain that as quickly as possible.
Exactly.
Right. So one of the things that I wanted to harp on, so for as poor as the turnout was in that special election, we are one of the few municipalities that has their municipal elections during the November general election, right? And we tend to have extremely high voter turnout compared to other municipalities in our November election. To that point, if you look at the amount of people that vote in a town mayoral race or in a town council race that happens in November, more people vote in our municipal elections than vote in municipal elections that are held standalone in the city of Miami, in the city of Hialeah, the city of Miami Beach, cities that are 8, 10, 12
Much
times
bigger.
larger than us, right? So in my election, I was blessed to have 8,419 people vote for me. That's more than a lot of mayors in Miami-Dade County have had vote for them, and I think maintaining those elections in November really helps make sure that all Miami Lakers' voices are heard.
I see. Let's talk about something lighter now. A little bit lighter. What is your favorite thing about Miami Lakes, about the town of Miami Lakes?
Oh, wow.
For me, I would say it starts with the people, right? So I really enjoy, like I was mentioning earlier, going to all these events that the community has, from private events to town events, and really getting to, over time, see the same families over again, and then over time you build a friendship with them. Mm-hmm. And it kind of brings that comfort and familiarity with the community that just makes, to me, Miami Lakes such a special place to be in, right? Compared to other, suburban neighborhoods that are part of a larger metropolitan area, right? So like you go to Westchester, you go to even Doral, I don't see that same level of camaraderie, but you do see that in Miami Lakes, which is partially due to its size and also the fact that we do over 170 events or whatever it might be every year, and that's just the town government, not including, again, for private events that take place. So, so I really enjoy the people here. I think that they're special, and I really enjoyed that aspect of living here the most.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, and Fred, for me, it was kind of a very happy and unexpected surprise, right? So when we decided to move here, it was really we loved the tree-lined streets. We liked the pocket parks in every neighborhood. We loved there's A-rated schools, great places to eat. Those were kind of the selling points. Those are the realtor selling points, right? And when we moved here is really when we got to know what that fabric of community really feels like, right? And both of us have lived in several different places throughout the county, and this is really the only place where I've felt that sense of community, the only place where I know, my next door neighbor, the one next to him, the one next to everybody in the community. You bike down the street and every other person, and what's going on in their lives, and we really think the town does a good job of fostering that sense of community through different events. That
it is kind of nice when you go to a restaurant and you bump into 2 or 3 different people that that you have met before and things like that. So it brings it together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What you have a hobby that you do here in town, or play sports?
Well, hobbies in town. Let's see. Well, I guess I'll phrase it this way. One of my favorite things to do in the town would be to go to Chella's, right? So they have a great happy hour menu, and I'm talking about the food specifically, right? They have great lobster taquitos, which if you haven't tried, you should. Also, their Sunday brunch is excellent. They have great chicken and waffles, but also dollar oysters. But don't worry, I've been there.
Dollar oysters?
Yeah, but they're a good size. You're actually going to be okay, right? I mean, I know we're further away from the coast, but they took their time in making sure that they found the right company that was able to deliver them fresh and in good quality and not get them sick. So those are kind of some of my favorite places for my friends and I to go to, when we want to go out in town. More generally speaking, I'm a big reader. I like to read a lot of history and biography related books, and occasionally maybe a fantasy type book in the mold of Lord of the Rings, for example, right? I also enjoy traveling. I think I showed you recently the video of me cave diving in Arizona. Sure. So I do enjoy that, and those are probably the two things I do the most that I really enjoy.
You're not married?
Not that I know of, man. So I have more time to do that. I acknowledge that.
Good. On the other hand, Tony, you are married.
Yes, I have slightly less time. Definitely don't have as much time to read as much as I would like. But I will tell you, there is, after a long and sometimes stressful day at work, it's fantastic to get home, just go to the backyard, grab my little Petunia, my little French bulldog, go sit in the backyard under the coconut trees and just listen to the fountain and the water, and all of your worries just melt away, and you realize that we're all fortunate enough to live in paradise.
Oh, that's wonderful. And what is good to see is refreshing to see two individuals like you two that are in the council, that are running for the same position to be the mayor, the next mayor of our town, and still, laughing at each other's things and, the comments and whatever. I think it's refreshing, from what you hear and you see in politics throughout the country, nowadays it doesn't come too often.
Even locally now.
So I applaud you for that, because I think it's important to show, that even though we may disagree,
I think Fred, civil discourse is a lost art sometimes,
yes,
right? And some of us have forgotten how to express our points and get our points across, while still respecting others' viewpoints. I can tell you, sometimes people will ask us, and we're friends. Isn't it weird that you guys are running against each other? And I'm like, no. Nobody's running against anybody, right? We're both running for the residents of the town of Miami Lakes. We're both running. We both would make excellent mayors, right? And so we're really doing this, but we have enough achievements in our time serving the town to where there's a lot that we can both bring to the table. So by no means are we running against each other. We're running in parallel, right?
Oh,
and at the end of the day, on November 5th, the town of Miami Lakes will be better for it.
It's going to be a tough battle there, and that for people to decide, because I think the world out of you two. We've been together in many events throughout the years and things to know that you're both gentlemen, and and that you do things the right way, and that you don't mess around. You get the job done, which is the important thing. So I want to thank you, and you guys just made history for the town today. Actually we made history because it's the first time that something like this has ever taken place. So I thank you for being here, for accepting our invitation, and make the best men win in November.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
So until next time.